All right, Henry. It's been one of those kind of days. Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome to Hack Check Studios. This is Hacks Chat, where we talk to a very popular and creative individuals on this show. So on this one, we have Clayton Barton, and he's going to hang out with us for an hour or so. And I believe his brother Corey is going to be here as well. And we got a couple people in the chat already. We have Roland and we have Darren. Hey, what's up? So Clayton, you got some stuff going on. You got an Indiegogo and some projects, huh?
Yeah, we do, man. So Kozor, Descent into Madness is our first project. And the fact that it's our first and the level of support that we have received is just mind-blowing because, we had very modest expectations coming out of the gate. We were like, look, we got to be realistic here. This is our first ever comic book. We've never done one before. And so, that means that it's essentially our first introduction to any would-be backers that would jump on board. In other words, we don't have a fan base for Kozor yet. However, people like you, Art, and the incredible Comicsgate community, and a bunch of other people, even outside of that, have had us on their channels, interviewed us about the story, and helped us to get as many eyes as possible on our project. And it really has just paid off. The amount of support we've received is quite frankly overwhelming. And what it means at the end of the day is that Corey, who's the original creator and writer of Kozor, he's able to go and speak of the devil. He's able to go ahead and create more and more issues, which is exactly what he intends to do. So yeah, how you doing, Corey?
Wouldn't want to do anything else other than just draw Kozor and color.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the station. Well, welcome to the channel. This is Hacks Chat. So we got a twofer. We got the Barton brothers here. So it's an interesting combination. So it's really Corey's project, and Clayton, you're kind of coming in as an art director and you're tweaking it up, from what I understand, right?
Yeah, it's very unique in that way, and close to both our hearts. I've become very invested in Kozor through this process, and collaborating with your brother. I mean, that's the dream, right? You talk about creating comic books as kids and doing them together, and now here we are actually living out that fantasy. So that's been really amazing. And because it's such a unique experience, it's kind of got me thinking about the potential of it all, and how maybe one day we can do another comic book where we're working in very much the same way, because it's a quick process. Corey is kind of a faster artist than I am at times, and yet at the same time, it's very quick for me to go over the top and tweak everything, polish it up. And I guess when you look at Kozor in the interior pages, ultimately what you're observing is a hybrid style that is both Corey and mine. And that's just
really cool. Like a penciler inker like combination, where you're
definitely
contributing your own style and way of approaching the work. So are you working digitally, Clayton, over Corey? And Corey, are you working traditionally?
Yeah, well, we both actually worked digitally. So, okay. I mean, Clayton's much more of it than like the inker going over. Like he's full on redoing the artwork and, colors as well, like pencils, inks, and colors. So I appreciate it a lot.
Thanks, man.
So wait, Clayton, you're doing the coloring as well?
Well, Corey's got his original colors there, but then, we've had to rework some of the panels more than others. And it just really does depend on the page. If the anatomy is completely out of whack, or the characters need to be repositioned within the scene to make it a little more readable and to make sense, then that means, of course, tweaking the colors fairly significantly. But on a base level, what I'm doing with each page is recalibrating the colors and harmonizing them so that they pop and that there's an established, consistent mood from one panel to the next. And the difference really is there. I mean, I can later on I can get up a Photoshop document and a comparison, side-by-side comparison that shows you the differences and what you're going to get in the original version as opposed to this new high resolution definitive version of Kozor.
This was a completely done book. So Corey, you had the book completely done.
Yeah.
And then you decided to like bring it to the crowdfund and then kind of bring it up to, to date. So when was the book originally done, Corey?
Yeah, I think maybe like a year ago. It's hard to say. I don't keep any dates, but it was like it's all pretty much done. Almost
probably 2 years
issue
ago, man.
as well. Yeah.
Because you have almost finished Kozor issue 2 at this point, and that took you a year to put together.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And issue 2 is even longer.
I'm just gonna jump right to the future. So as soon as this one's done, and you're in fulfillment, which sounds like you're gonna be able to do it relatively quickly, then you're going to crowdfund issue 2.
Yeah, we can practically do it right away after. So
totally. We might have a bit of a breather in between. We want to give people a chance to catch up. And, we've thought about it before, the frequency at which we want to put these comic books out and what's going to be best for our audience. And, I know that sometimes there's a lot of other books to back as well. Within Comicsgate, on Indiegogo, fantastic projects, and if we backed all of them, they'd just break our budget. So I guess we don't want to oversaturate ourselves, Oh
man, I want to do 2 or 3 a year.
That would be the ideal. Exactly.
Oh my gosh, Corey, can you keep up with that workload? That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's exactly.
So this is like this is an ongoing adventure. The Kozor story is like.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Originally, I planned to do like 10 issues in the first graphic novel, but got so many ideas it might be bigger. And then I'm inspired by like the Berserk manga, which is like 30 volumes. So I want to make it that big because each issue sort of revolves around a different character within that world, and it just sort of keeps building upon it.
So is Kozor the world, or is that the character with the guy with the big battle axe and stuff?
No, so that guy with the big battle axe is actually Chief Barton, and he's sort of like the main character of the first sort of issue in the Sent into Madness. But the second issue revolves around his daughter, which is just called Alice, and she's a bit more grown up in that. But Kozor, basically, he is a character in the book, but he's more of like a godlike character in the background, which other characters sort of keep mentioning until he eventually comes into the series.
Like
so it's a bit like Game of Thrones. Yeah.
So is it kind of like a sword and sorcery kind of Conan-esque world, or is it? It looks a little bit more futuristic. What's the setting? What's the world like?
Yeah, it's pretty much like old school fantasy, like medieval times, basically. But it's got a lot more in it. Like it's got like different races, like demons and mushroom people and fish looking people. So a lot of crazy stuff. So
a little H.R. Puffin stuff going on there.
Yeah, it's people have described it as Conan meets H.P. Lovecraft, in a sense, which I think is pretty accurate when you look at Corey's artwork and the visual style that he has gone for.
Yeah, I love the Robert E. Howard novels when I was young, and then of course the Marvel, Conan. I collected the black and white magazine stuff in the day, and that stuff was gorgeous, man. So my heart, like early on, was all like sword, sorcery, adventure type of stuff. So big swords and just cutting people and stuff. Yeah, and big axes, just planting them into monsters. Yeah. It's good stuff. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna share your campaign, and then we can go over the campaign proper.
For sure.
So people can kind of put some images to what we're talking about. So this is Kozor, Descent into Madness. a nightmare fuel story of 4 demons, grizzled warriors, and abundant bloodshed. So this guy on this this image here does not look happy. So why don't you kind of continue with like a little bit of the concept and the campaign itself?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure if you shared the audio there, but we could play the trailer if you like.
Yeah,
That gives you
go ahead.
that gives you a good overview of what the comic book is about.
Okay. It's loading up now. Wow. I'm just saying here. Look at this. What is going on?
Well, that's okay.
Ooh, fanfare.
Kozor Descent into Madness features 43 full-color pages of intricately detailed art that tells a nightmare-fueled story of foul dealings, abundant bloodshed, and the insidious corruption of a warrior's psyche. The story centers around a mighty warrior named Chief Barton and his clan of savage swordsmen who embark on a quest into the sacred swamplands of Nimla in search for the mysterious Faceless People, a race of submissive super soldiers who will balance out the odds in a ruthless war between man and demon. But when they're attacked by a flock of flying beasts, their journey proves more fatal than they could have ever imagined. In this campaign, backers get no less than the definitive edition of Kozor Descent into Madness, which comes complete with refined edits, additional story pages, retouched interior artwork, and new wraparound covers. If you're a fan of dark fantasy and medieval horror, this book is for you. Back Kozor Descent into Madness today, only on Indiegogo.
Wow. You're right,
Cool.
man. The video say it all.
Yeah. We wanted to give people a good hook with the overview of what the story was all about. But yeah, just to recap on it, it essentially centers around Chief Barton, which is the main character in the foreground there that you can see with the fish mask. Now that is actually a foe that he has come up against in the past, and he's kind of ripped off the face of that foe, this sea creature, and now he's wearing it as a trophy just to show anybody else who tries to mess with him what he's all about. Got that big battle axe that he's carrying around with him. And then you've got this guy in the background, this skeletal demon-like figure who is the main villain of the story, Magator. Now, he's a psychic demon, and the relationship between these two characters is that, well, Magator is trying to manipulate and turn Chief Barton into a pawn for his own bidding. And the reason as to why Chief Barton is so susceptible is because he's a maddened warrior. He's broken from the battles that he's come up against in the past. And so he would make the perfect soldier for Magator's demonic army. So this is set in a world where it's demon against mankind, and a war is waging between the two. Now, the guy in the bottom right-hand corner, that is in fact Kozor, which is the central figure within the story. And I don't know if it's a coincidence that he kind of looks like Corey and has a similar name to Corey, but it's funny because Kozor is kind of like the ring in Lord of the Rings, or the throne in the Game of Thrones, where you've got that MacGuffin, I guess you could call it, within the story, but it's really about the characters that reside within that world. And so in this first issue of Kozor, we see Chief Barton and his band of savage swordsmen going on a mission into the sacred swamplands of Nimla.
Oh, and swordswomen. There's some nice-looking female soldiers in it too.
Yeah,
so
of course.
Kozor here without his helmet on?
Well, this is Chief Barton without his helmet on, yeah. And, this is a nightmare sequence that's actually unfolding throughout the book. And it's kind of a representation of the sort of manipulation that Magator is thrusting upon Chief Baron in order to turn him. And we see this apparition of Chief Baron's daughter in the distance as he walks toward her. And then as you scroll down throughout the campaign, you can see that on the next page, she turns toward him, and this demonic growth starts sprawling out across her face. Eyes and horns start popping out of her head until basically he's overwhelmed by this demonic vision that's essentially taking him over.
Wow, this is great.
Yeah.
Great looking stuff. So you guys are writing, pencil, inking, and coloring this book. Are you lettering it as well?
Yep, we're lettering it. Corey has already kind of done that already. I'm going to go in over the top and just double check that all of the dialogue makes sense, that the speech bubbles are properly placed in order to serve the composition as best as they can. But that's one of the reasons why we've decided to do the lettering ourselves, is because we very much feel that it is a part of the composition where you place those speech bubbles. And so, you've got to keep in mind exactly, where in comparison to the characters they're going to play their part in the best way possible. And we feel, I think Corey's done a pretty good job of that already. He's got a bit of a natural eye for it. So,
I do want to redo some dialogue because it's always fun to do, and to put like little teasers as to what's going to happen in the future.
Definitely. So, the words and the art, in a comic book panel layout, it's essential, and you have to make it aesthetically pleasing within the art and also very real, so the eye moves across the panel in the way that you want to. So it's a little bit tricky, and it is an art form, the placement and positioning of the balloons. And I don't know if you're like me, Corey, but when I lay out things, I'm already kind of thinking how the dialogue is going to go back and forth, so I can lay out the composition to accommodate more dialogue, less dialogue, or if there's going to be a lot of back and forth between two characters, which is also tricky, especially with establishing shots if it's a smaller panel, because you might not be able to see the backgrounds anymore. So there's a lot.
Of course. Well, to sort of tackle it, I guess, because I'm not really a good script writer or anything, but I would actually sketch up the whole page for like each comic, and in between that, I'll just write up dialogue on the spot, and I'd keep re-going over it, and eventually. But that's how I made sure all the dialogue fits into each panel as well.
Yeah, that's kind of how I work too, where you just kind of put a rough, bit of words in, so you kind of have an idea of how it's going to pace out and compositionally, where everything's going to fit in. So yeah, I mean, this stuff looks great. Is this a Kanan White cover? Is that what this is?
Yeah, it sure is. Both Corey and I have been longtime fans of Kanan White. And in fact, I've known him for years, like more than a decade. I was asking him advice back when I was in high school, and as to how I could, level up my drawing skill set. And so to have him contribute to Kozor in such a significant way, it's really come full circle, and it's truly a surreal experience to have this cover on the front of our book.
So you have this cover, and then this is a variant as well. Is that right? Or is this?
Yep.
Okay.
No, that's a variant cover, and that's actually Corey's variant cover. So you can see that it's got a very H.R. Geiger type feel to it. That's where that Lovecraftian flavor really starts to come through in the visuals.
And then that main image with the character with the axe and stuff, that's you, Clayton, right?
Yeah, that's the one that I've done up. And, Corey absolutely loved that cover. He's trying to talk me into doing the cover for issue 2 now, which is, again, it's just been really cool to work on this with him.
Well, I think you should do it, but you should definitely charge him more.
Maybe I will.
I think Rob was talking about a price for Clayton, but I'm like, man, like Clayton's work has sold this book so much, I'll just drop $1,000 for it. I wouldn't care. Because
Okay, bro.
at the end of the day, it's worth it. I mean, the cover, and Clayton's a pretty insane artist already. So
Thanks, man. I
Well, this
appreciate that.
this world is well thought out and well crafted. There's a lot of imagination going into these pages, Corey. So this is good looking stuff, man. I like the amount of detail and work that's going into this. It's
yeah,
polished, but it's kind of raw at the same time, and I like that. When I mean raw, it's kind of visceral. It's got energy. It's not overly polished, which I think fits this world real well. This world that you guys have created. I really like.
Definitely.
Have you thought about doing a black and white edition? Because these black and white pages are pretty amazing looking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
heck yeah, man. And that's exactly it. We've got a tier offering the black and white line art edition of this book, and for that very reason, we wanted to shine a spotlight on the line art. It's going to be just like a regular comic book. The dialogue is inside it, but both the interiors and the cover are going to have the colors taken out and the spotlight shone on the line art alone, so you can really take in every single stroke, every single little itty bitty piece of detail that Corey has incorporated into these panels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great looking stuff. So is that let's get into the tiers, because I'm going to ask a bunch of dumb questions, but maybe if we just go over the tiers, I won't have to ask them. So here we got the featured, which is all 3 editions. So these are wait a minute, so there's a black and white cover edition. I thought the three would be with Kanan Whites too, right? Or no?
Yeah, well, we actually added Kanan Whites a little bit later at about the midway point of our campaign.
Okay.
And so this is the initial 3 editions that we came up with. And that gives you the definitive edition, which is, it's all the high resolution art by both Corey and I. Then you get the Corey variant of that version as well. And you also get the black and white line art edition. And you get 3 A3 posters, each featuring the artwork from these books, and that's without the title, of course, so you just get the artwork. And A3 for those in the US is about 11.7 by 16.5 inches, so it's quite large. If you think about the regular size of a comic book and expand it a little bit, then double it, that's the size of these posters. And they're shipped to you flat in a really sturdy mailer, similar to the Gemini mailer, except of course it's going to be bigger, and it's the Australian version of the Gemini mailer. But we can guarantee that it's going to get to your doorstep in pristine condition. All the hard copies are signed by both Corey and I. You get the digital versions of these editions as well in this pack. And the reason that we've included those digital versions is because we know that maybe you'll give the hard copies a read once, but then you want to keep them in as preserved as possible. So with the digital version, you can take the book anywhere you want. You'll never lose it, and you can reread it a bazillion times, and it's never going to get any wear and tear.
That's cool. So then the definitive edition, which is 35, and this comes with the poster. What is the definitive? Okay, the definitive edition, that's the book itself, right?
Yeah, that's the book itself. So that's the default book that we're offering here. And we've called it the definitive because there is an original version that's untouched by me available in one of the tiers. Now, that's actually $35 Australian. In the US, that translates to $25 USD, which is the standard price for a Comicsgate comic book. And each one of these tiers with the individual books offered actually have a little something extra in the package for you. Again, you get another print, and you get the digital version of that book, and it's signed by both Corey and I. Once again,
that's a great deal. That is a great deal for $25. Some people sell the posters for anywhere between $15 and $25 just alone. Yeah. So you're like almost like getting a poster for free. So that's pretty
absolutely cool. It's a complimentary addition to each one of these tiers that we really wanted to give you guys. And basically you can get all of the individual editions of the book individually. If you have a specific cover like Corey's cover here that you like, you can get that, and we're offering all the same extras along with those individual books.
Okay,
we've
so
got,
there's Corey's here, and then here's yours in black and white form. And so you're
Yep.
saying they still come with the poster, the PDF, and they're all signed. And then the cane and
Is
white.
the poster black and white?
if you get the black and white version of the book, then yes, you'll get the black and white poster.
Nice.
So you get the corresponding poster with the cover, right?
Yep, that's exactly it.
Okay. And so then here's the cane and white. So is there a cane and white poster, or what's the poster here?
Yep, we're going to be giving you the cane and white poster. So the beautiful artwork that you see on the front cover here, you're going to get that as a poster. It just won't have the title on it, so that it's not going to distract you. It's just going to be the illustration.
So there's going to be 4 different covers. Posters from the covers that you have. So you have the 2 color versions, and then you have the black and white, and then you have the cane and white. Is that correct?
Yep, that's exactly it. Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of cool posters. So here we go. This is the variant combo. So is this one
So
of
this
these books?
this is actually the variant, Corey's variant, with in combination with the definitive edition. So again, we added canons later, and this tier was built before we had actually added that canon cover. And so you can buy the definitive edition and Corey's variant here for $49 USD. And you get, of course, the posters of both of these covers are both signed as far as the hard copies are concerned. And the digital versions of both these editions too.
So you get both covers with the corresponding covers? Wow, okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it, man. And we've tried to keep the shipping on all of these packages as minimal as we can. We haven't added anything on that we don't need to add on, and as minimal as we can keep it, at least, shipping from Australia to the US, which unfortunately can be expensive, but not as expensive for you guys as it is to ship from the US to Australia, I believe.
Yeah, but you're shipping posters and comics, so that gets a little tricky as far as shipping.
Yeah, it can do for sure.
So here is definitive black and white edition. So this is the definitive with the definitive black and white.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Okay.
And this has been one of our most popular tiers, by the way. People really want the best of both worlds when it comes to Kozor. They want to see that beautiful black and white line art alone, while also making sure that they got the colored version of the book with them as well. So, it's a great tier to get if you are looking for both versions.
Well, I think people are liking this because that's 33 claimed there. So that's pretty cool. So, this is the 3 versions, but it's got the Kanan instead of the line art black and white version. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing is that you get all of that for $70 USD. So you get a major discount on the books individually. So if you're on a bit of a budget, but you want all the variant covers and the main book, then this is definitely the one to go for. You'll get the 3 posters, of course. You get the Kanan variant, the Corey variant, and the default version, and then the digital versions of all those books too. So definitely packing the value into all of these tiers.
So last but not least, this is all 4. So this is with the Kanan cover?
No, this one doesn't have the Kanan cover, unfortunately. But it does offer a ton of value. It's a little bit more expensive than the rest. So at $183 USD. But let me explain.
What's the 4th book then? It says 4 books plus 5 posters.
Yeah. So that's what's really cool, right? Is that the 4th book here is actually the original version of Kozor, untouched by me. Corey's got it there, actually, if you want to show it.
Yeah, I'll come back. Oh, that's awesome, man. So this is where it all began. Oh, hold on.
That's where it all began. So open it up, Corey.
Show it. Cover? You're going to use the same cover? That almost painted. Hold that up again, Corey.
This one?
It looks painted. It doesn't look...
if you look really close, you can see the hatches. So.
You can see the line.
Very detailed.
Yeah. Oh my
Sort
god.
of looks nice printed. So yeah, and it'll look 10 times better with Clayton going over it. So
But well, you get that original version, so you know, and it's a collector's item. You know, we wanted to put it in there for hardcore fans. This is an original drawing that you're going to get from Corey as well with that particular tier. So, you know, that's, I mean, you're going to get your own individual drawing that Corey has done up by hand, which is really cool. You know, that's worth the value that you're investing.
Yeah, because Corey works digitally, so it's also seems like it'd be rare to get something on paper from you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely, man.
yeah.
So yeah, and you know, I just think it's going to be so cool to actually be able to compare what the original looked like, the alpha version of Kozor, in comparison to this new version that we're bringing out for its first ever printing.
Do you have any add-ons like in checkout to the campaign?
We don't actually. We're being our first campaign, we're not quite sure how to work them yet. So
that would be ideal to put the
Kanan cover
on there, yeah, because then they can just add that on to any of those tiers, and you don't have to recreate an entire tier.
Yeah, for sure.
Hard. If I can do it, Clayton.
If you can do it, I can do it, right? So we'll look into it. Actually, I think that'd be a really good idea because you know people love that Kanan cover. They really do. With that final tier, you get.
Well, let me actually go back to that, and then they can get a visual. Hold on.
Yeah, for sure.
I was looking at how much time you guys have left, and you're counting it down today, right?
Yeah, man, we're counting it down today. The end of the campaign is very near. So you get 5 posters with this one. You're going to get you know a poster of all of the books, but then we've also got a Jimmy Reyes print as well that we've gotten done up, and yeah, so that'll make 5. We might even throw the Kanan White cover in there as a print too. I think that'd be really cool. You get digital versions of all of the books. You get 3 exclusive collector cards, and you get a bookmark and sticker on top of that. So it's really great stuff.
So you guys, this is limited too. So you guys, you're closing in on almost half claimed. So there's a few more for you to get. So this looks like the tier. This looks like the tier to back, man. This is everything and then some. So do you have the Jimmy Reyes piece? Can you see it anywhere? I didn't see it on the site.
I can actually go ahead and share it if you like.
Yeah. Let's do that, and let's go up and see. You got 7 hours left. So is this going to be the countdown day? Are you going to count this down on John Malin's show, or what are you going to do?
Yeah, we're going to count this down on John Malin's show and see the campaign out with him. So he's been, you know, very, very supportive of this project, which, you know, we're extremely grateful for.
It's been awesome.
He's been backing us from the start, helping to get us out there, promoting it, and now to see it out on his channel, it absolutely means the world to us. And I think it shows that he really does care about every single project out there within Comicsgate right now. He's supportive of the movement.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, these countdown, they're long, but they're a lot of fun too, man. There's a lot of craziness that happens. So you guys are gonna go till, I guess it would be midnight. So it's midnight, whoever time zone it's set up in, right? So it'll be midnight your time, right?
Well, it'll be probably midnight EST, which is, you know, most people in the US. For us, it's going to be like midday, I think.
Oh, okay.
And it'll end at about 4 p.m. our time in the afternoon.
So then it's set up. I don't know how that works. I thought it was whoever like set it up, it's on their time zone. But who knows? Yeah, maybe it's always on on East Coast time. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, these are. Oh, you mean when the campaign is actually going to end? It is actually PST.
Yeah, if it's 7 hours from now, like it's almost 6 here, so 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. It would be like 1 o'clock here, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. Yeah, it would be 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So I don't know what timeline this is set on, actually.
I can find out, actually.
Unless maybe it's not quite 7 hours you have left. Like, because sometimes you don't know how many minutes. So maybe you're about to lose an hour. So if it was 6 hours that you had left, then that would be midnight Pacific Standard Time.
It does end at midnight PDT.
That's okay, because maybe aren't they San Francisco? I don't know where Indiegogo is. But maybe it's all set up on Indiegogo, like wherever their location is, and it's on their timeline.
Yeah, it could very well be. And yeah, man, I was looking for that Jimmy Reyes cover. It must be sitting somewhere on my hard drive. So I'll,
Yeah, so Cryptic says, so he backed me up here. So they're based in San Francisco, so they end at midnight Pacific Standard. Okay, so that's why I was thinking it ends on whoever sets it up. So it's always set, because I'm Pacific Standard Time, so it's always midnight my time. So it's later. You're not on Eastern. You're like a complete day ahead, right?
Yeah, we're like AEST or something like that, Australian Eastern Standard Time. And so, man, I think we're like 8 hours or 11 hours ahead of you guys.
Okay.
So we're in the future. It is.
What's the weather like in the future?
It's nice, actually. It's a nice day. So it's Sunday for us right now.
Yeah.
I'll share this screen with you if you like.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to show you this is because it's a really cool comparison that shows you the differences that you'll observe if you do get the original version of Kozor and the new high definition version that's been touched up by myself. So this is one of my favorite pages from Kozor. If I zoom out here, you can see it's super epic, right? And this is Corey's original version of it. In the new version that I've touched up, we fixed a few things, right?
Well,
so you can see
things. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I added a few things.
I guess it looks like it's added, but it's just bigger, more in the foreground.
Yeah. They've somehow had plastic surgery in medieval times.
Oh, Clayton.
A lot of different changes have been made, especially to the background. I really wanted to make, the main guy here stand out a little bit more, draw attention to him. And so not only did I kind of tweak the background so that we were taking a little bit more, lightening the values in a sense, but we also added more to his costume too, to make it more detailed and accurate to his original design. And of course, Corey was bugging me about fixing up the girls on the page. He really wanted to.
I actually just noticed you put like spikes on their shoulders. It's cool.
Yeah,
cool add-on, man. I'm going to be copying this, like at least,
Well,
I'm glad you like it.
That you guys can work with each other without getting crazy egos involved, because I don't know, man, I can't see anybody else working like this and not getting bruised egos and getting into fistfights, because you really have to, one, like, respect each other, and since you're brothers, I guess blood is deeper, right? Like,
yeah, definitely.
Well, like, I've always looked up to Clayton as like one of the best artists I know, and the one that I wanted to be like. So
Well, I think you guys complement each other well, because the integrity is still there. Once again, like as an inker, and I kind of think that, Clayton is kind of an embellisher. Like we used to call them embellishers or finishers in the day.
Yeah.
So it looks like you're kind of coming in and finishing Corey's work, which is always like in comic books, you have to have like the company behind you. and then the artist, the penciler, has to really sign off, because you can really take it into different directions. I've done a lot of work where I've done finishes over people, and you really have to have the trust and the respect of the person that originally drew them. Like in my case, like Will Spataccio or Jim Lee or Dan Jurgens, where you're coming in there and you can fundamentally change things. Like I remember sometimes I would not, like mostly on Dan Jurgens, where I would blow up some of the figures and make them bigger, or kind of change the composition to fit what needed to be emphasized more so. And that usually came from the editor, though. The editor would ask. So I think you guys are complementing each other in a great way. Like, this is really difficult to do, and you guys are making it look really easy.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
really do appreciate that. And yeah, you're right. You can change some very significant things, like just this eye down here, which it's an example of a panel that I went ahead and completely redone. It was great to begin with, but the context here of the story is, Chief Barron is supposed to be looking up at these ladies and Kozor on these beasts in a way which is, he's shocked. He's scared. He doesn't know quite what he's looking at. Like, what are these foul demons? And yet at the same time, in this original panel, there was a bit more anger and a bit more of an enraged look in his eye. And so with the new version, I still wanted to capture a little bit of that anger, but I also wanted to inject more fear into his expression. And so, it fits in a little bit better with the narrative of the story. And it just goes to show that, the smallest, most minute changes can completely change how it appears the characters actually feel about what's going on.
Oh yeah, definitely, with emotions. So yeah, this is a great complementary of styles here.
Thanks,
And I do love just your crazy imagination, Corey. There's some wild stuff happening here.
Yeah,
and I like that you're not afraid of black. Like putting like heavy blacks in, and textures. So
thanks.
there's a lot of people that shy away from that, because especially in this day and age, with digital coloring, that they feel like, oh, the coloring will fill the gap.
Yeah, of course. I remember one time, I think one of my friends, like girlfriends or something, mentioned, she's like, "Oh, I like the art without all the detail," and I'm like, "No, like how dare you say that?"
My wife says too. She like simplify. Like I think like women just like things to be, like, I guess, easier to read and cleaner.
Like cleaner or something, yeah.
Yeah, more organized maybe. And I it's weird because like creatively I go back and forth, because I think like I want to simplify, but then I want to go crazy at the same time. So at this point in my life, like the old me would be like, I'd be like you, Clayton. I'd be rendering the hell out of everything, like just hatching everywhere, because I used to love that, and I was known, kind of as, oh, this is a hatch guy. He does a bunch of hatching. But then as I get older, I'm like, I want detail, but not that kind of detail. Like I want detail, like stuff, like things, like all of their, like on black and white, like all their gear, like get into heavy detail on that, like get into like background detail. There's, cars, there's a lot of stuff, but not necessarily like where everything's rendered and everything is kind of like modeled. So what I'm trying to do now is like just kind of still get like a lot of detail in with just things, not hatching, but then have open areas and black areas, and that will like kind of anchor things and make things look less busy, and that way I can kind of steer your eye to where I want you to go versus all over the place. And I like what Corey's doing is where your backgrounds are, they're super fantastic. They're not based on reality, so you can get all kinds of crazy kind of like kinetic movement and things like that. And as far as an inker, holy shit, man, that's a dream come true, because you don't have to get locked in with like, detail, like structured detail. You can actually just kind of express yourself with like, like these long strokes and stuff like that. So I don't know how you guys do it digitally, but I know like I would have a blast with just a brush and just throwing it down on the board. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you kind of used to have a bit more of a detailed style art. Was it difficult toning things back? Did you have to reassess where you were going to include the clusters of detail that resided within your illustrations?
I think what happened for me was I started studying more like just structure and just the core of what it is versus like I really had kind of an ego. Like I thought like I could polish anything. Like if you gave me anything to work from, I could make it sing. And on some level I did, but then I started realizing, you look back at your work and go, well, it's still polishing a turd. You know what I mean? Like the structure was still kind of not quite there, and the anatomy and the composition wasn't as strong. So what I'm trying to do now is just simplify it in layout form and try to get the form and proportion, anatomy, composition, and try to get those things as correct as I can, and just let those things, if I can nail that, then any superficial, like dressing I put on it is going to be a plus. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if I decide to simplify it, or if I decide to go to heavy contrast with shadow, or if, I render like a bunch of like kind of hatching and create gray tones with my hatching, then it's all going to work because the structure of it is substantial, it's solid, and so sure. I think that's kind of where I'm focusing now. And I think, like I said, when I was younger, I think my ego was more like, that didn't matter. You know what I mean? It's like, as long as there's all this crazy shit going on, you know what I mean? People just go, whoa, this is nuts.
Yeah, definitely.
It's kind of like, one of my favorite is Barry Windsor Smith. And so if you look at Barry Windsor Smith, like the early stuff was really, really good, but the drawing wasn't quite there. You know what I mean? So you'd go, holy shit, there's all this craziness going on. There's all this rendering and all this stuff. But then you see how he progressed, and you see like the drawing started getting better. Like all the rendering was still there, but the drawing and everything started getting better. And then I was like, that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I really like an artist named Alex Toth. So I like that, his whole thing was, the older I got, the less I did. So I started trying to see how little I could do versus how much I could do. And so I'm not necessarily 100% there, but I do like that mindset. So when I'm drawing it, just the raw drawing, I try to think that way. Keep it simple, direct, form, proportion, like all those important things. And then whatever, I decide to do on top of that, that's just window dressing. It's almost like completely separate from, the structure itself.
Yeah, for sure. So do you have like a set amount of detail that you hold yourself to when it comes to your illustrations now, so that you don't have some panels where the characters have more detail in them than others?
Yeah, well, that's going to happen anyway, because the one thing I think a lot of new artists fall prey to is they don't know how much detail, especially digitally, because I started working over digital pencils, before just a couple years ago when I was working at DC Comics. And so what those guys were doing is they were blowing things up huge and drawing them, and then they were moving them down, and there's no way you could ink that. You know what I mean? Like, unfortunately to the board, you can't ink that. So what I was doing, and I didn't get criticized for it, so I think I was doing the right thing, is you have to simplify. Otherwise, it just turns to mud. Like, you can't read it. So there is a certain level of like detail with, like, if it's a pullback shot, a medium shot, or I guess close up, And then close up, obviously, you can get way more into detail. Middle, somewhere in the middle, and then like when you pull back, I almost just like linear approach, just outlines. Don't get
Absolutely.
too crazy. And if there's going to be any blacks in it, then just keep those simple as well.
For sure.
Because readability, it just works so much better. Because trust me, man, I've seen, like, I'm not going to name names, but I've seen cars and stuff like it. Well, it was on Super Sun, so you figure it out. And these cars were crazy detailed, like there were the wheels and the rims. They were all like fancy and ornate. And then like when you're blowing it up, you can like draw that stuff in. But when it's the wheel, like you could barely even measure the wheel size. It just becomes almost impossible.
Yeah.
So
Corey and I are always reminding ourselves of that as well. Like being digital artists, you might zoom in a tiny bit, but you certainly don't want to cross that line because the other thing is that takes forever as well. Like if you're too zoomed in, not only is your details not going to show up in print, but it's going to take you way longer than it actually needs to take. Then people are going to even be able to appreciate it visually.
Yeah,
and,
what I do is I do sort of work digital. So I'm still like, I kind of work back and forth. So I'll thumbnail my drawing, I'll scan it in, and then it's easier to edit in Photoshop. So I can cut pieces out, I can move things around and do that. So I use Photoshop there. And then after I ink the page, I finish it, the physical page, I'll scan it in, and then I can clean up the ink. So one thing I do with the smaller figures is I'll kind of go in and maybe even simplify, or I'll clean up the line. Because like some people, it's like they think it's easy to ink small things. It's actually kind of harder because you have less to work with. So it's like one line that is probably not even measurable. You know what I mean? Like it's
absolutely
tiny line. But it has to be really, really clean, because if it gets too muddy, or if it's not in the right place, then you can screw it up quicker because there's less there and it's a lot smaller. Because you can go heavy-handed, you can make it look muddy. So it really is a fine line. And so I find like I can go in digitally, and even like small details, like say, like a gun. And so, like I'll see that it's a little muddy. So then I can digitally, scan it, bring it into Photoshop, and then I can blow it up. And then I can clean up some of the stuff. And then it just makes the readability that much better. Like the clarity, it's like taking a camera lens and it's slightly out of focus, but it's readable, right? And then you just kind of just turn it slightly, and it's like boom, you know what I mean? Like it's crystal clear. And that's kind of what I do that's how I use the digital technology. I one of these days, Clayton, I got to see you ink digitally, and you, Corey, as well, because I still I play with it. I have the tools here. I have a Cintiq, and I have all that stuff, but I don't really.
Yeah, I hear you, man. And go ahead, Corey.
I'd be scared of a professional inker watching me ink.
Yeah,
because I'm just so like, I'm gonna do it my own way. So
yeah,
and eventually something good comes out.
It's funny.
I like is like you watch some of those old school guys, and also I just found some of my early DC work. The boards were bigger. They weren't 11x17. They were bigger. And then if you ever been to a Comic-Con and like stuff from the 60s, 50s, all those pages are big. So I remember talk to like some of like the older guys, like even for me, like Dick Giordano, R.I.P. He would talk about using your arm. Like these strokes were like it wasn't just quick little movements with your hand or your finger. And I try to keep, like you see my finger moving, like I try to keep that in mind when I'm inking, because I want things to be fluid. So if you're too rigid, you know what I mean? Like you're, and I see like they're like, you can't be like that. You have to kind of be fluid and move with it. So I remember him talking about like doing stuff like that. And then talking about like even putting a little baby powder down on their hand so that they could make those big sweeps,
Wow.
brush and stuff like that. So those guys were all about movement and motion. You know what I mean? And you could only get that with those type of ideas. I don't know, like when I was in life drawing class, the thing I like the most is, you're working on big sheets and then you can just use tools, like massive tools, and you can just make these big sweeping lines and stuff like that. And I always liked that, like, movement. And I remember when I was talking to Carlos Pacheco, and he goes, everything you ink has movement. He goes, even if it's a ruled line, he goes, it has movement. And I said, it doesn't have to be stagnant. So, one of the things about Hack Check Studios, the studio, that I have here, is I've always trained inkers. So like Danny Mickey came out of here, Jaime Mendoza, Tim Townsend. Like there's a lot of like top, Jaime Mendoza, top inkers in business that came out of here. And I always tell them, like, even if it's ruled, you're using like rulers and French curves and stuff like that, it doesn't have to be stagnant. You can still move the line. So still think the same way. Still think like you're throwing down a line, like, like freehand, and just kind of use it as a guide, but you're moving it. And don't get too hung up on like trying to be too accurate, because there's kind of a natural organic sweep and move that'll happen when you're kind of moving quickly,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I take great pride in just try to make everything look alive. Like when you ink, it doesn't have to be stagnant, it doesn't have to be still. And one thing I see about both of your work, and I admire, being mainly an inker, is the polish that you're putting on this work is absolutely fantastic. And that black and white edition that you guys are doing, applause, man, because that's what you should be doing.
Thank you. Yeah, we knew we had to get that out there. And I mean, what you're saying there about the traditional versus digital, I'd say, man, like keep doing a traditional, because I tried my hand at traditional just recently, a few weeks back, and it's really, I think what you notice the most is that
the eyes are smaller.
Well,
he draws eyes smaller.
Well, it's that it's so easy to make a mistake, especially if you're inking, and it's like once that line is down on the page, it's basically staying there. So you've probably trained yourself up to this point, Art, where like you're very, very accurate and precise with the lines that you place down. Whereas with us digital artists, we're not accurate at all. We'll just lay something down. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't.
Well, because you have to control delete. Like you can just like, I don't like it.
Oh man.
I'll tell you, there is something like I'm going to copyright this, and I swear I am. So if you hear anybody, I've never ever heard anybody say this before, and this was a lifetime of drawing that got me to this place. When you pencil and you write, that is a process. It is a serious, like there's an eraser on most pencils, right? Like when you're penciling, you're erasing almost as much as you're penciling. So you're trying something, erasing, trying something, you're trying to find the right position, form, proportion, structure. When you're writing, writing is rewriting. You're writing, editing, writing, going back and forth. When you're inking, you're not doing that. Inking is a performance. I'm also a musician, and that's why I think I came to this conclusion. I'm like, inking is a performance. You're in the moment. It's not a process. It's a performance. It's you, it's that line, boom. That's it. So old traditional way, you don't go back. You don't make mistakes. This is permanent. You throw the line down, that's it. So you train yourself. There are no mistakes. And whatever it is that, like, if you change something, then you learn to organically go with it. So it's like a performance. Like if you're on stage and your voice cracks, or you miss a cue and you're an actor, a live performance, you learn to incorporate that into the performance. You know what I mean? And then that defines that performance. So when you're inking and you're throwing these lines down, those things become the performance. With control delete, alt delete, those things, then some of that stuff is gone, and the imperfections and some of that stuff that's tactile that you're actually putting down actually is the charm of it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's sometimes it's like it's kind of going with whatever change is happening along the way, because it is so permanent. So if you have a series of 10 hatches and they all have to kind of be uniform, and you hit that first one and you're off, and you guys know what I'm talking about, like off from the pencils, then you don't change, you don't erase that, you start going with that flow. So you're kind of committed to the whole. If it's 10 lines, you're committed to that whole 10 lines. You know what I mean? You're not like committed to 3 of them, delete the one, come back in, and then no, you're kind of like rhythmically. It's like it's a mindset. Like I have to do all these at the same time, and I have to commit to them in some kind of rhythm, because there has to be that kind of that rhythm. It has to just be there. And like you did bring up Clayton too. You can tell I'm passionate about this because
No, I love it. Yeah,
alive.
Feeling
Is that there is a certain like just level to just that movement, that energy that you're bringing to it, and I think for me, even if you guys are working digital, try to not rely on that you can fix it. Try to really go with like, this is the performance. I'm in this mode. And I don't see the problem with your work, because you're still bringing a lot of life and energy. Both of you guys have it innately. It must be in your DNA. But always try to keep that in mind, to try to, like, if you're going to do a series of hatching, think about the whole rhythm of it. And then like the time also to think is not while you're working. The time to think is before you ink. So I used to also say, don't think ink, because as soon as you get in your head, because it is a performance, as soon as you get in your head, you're going to screw it up. You like, if you're playing, like I'm a drummer, like if you're playing and then you start thinking, where am I in the song? As soon as you think, where am I at in the song, you're done. You know what I mean? Like you've lost that moment. You're not in the song anymore. You're somewhere else. So you can't do that. So, but when you're drawing, it is a completely different discipline. You are thinking like as you're drawing, you're thinking of where this should go. But in inking is just, it's a sheer performance. Like you're on stage.
Man, I love that.
Yeah.
And it's always fun talking to you about this stuff. Like you are really passionate about it, and you've got an interesting take there on inking in particular that has definitely helped me out. I remember the first time you spoke about it, it was on our channel with us, at least the first time you spoke about it with us. And yeah, it really did get me thinking, because the thing is, I'm always, when I get to the inking, for me, I'm overthinking stuff, and it does mess with you in a big way. It causes you to second guess yourself and to just rework something over and over again until it has lost all of that genuineness to it that brings it alive.
Yeah, I remember, this is how I work. Frank Frazetta, I was fortunate to be set up with him on like a luncheon.
Wow.
I was doing
Amazing.
illustration, and he was doing illustration for the same publishing company I was working with. And so we got to eat and ask him questions. So there were like 3 or 4 of us that worked for this publishing company, and I was doing illustration at the time, like novel covers and paintings and stuff like that. And so I remember talking to him, and then he said pencil tight, ink loose, and I was always like, I didn't ask him. You never want to be stupid. You never really, I want to ask him to elaborate on it. So I just let it sink in. And then over years, I was like, pencil tight, ink loose. And so what that means is that when you're penciling, you can be methodical. You can be whatever. And so sometimes that can be in the work. Like it could look really uptight. It could look really stiff. But if you kind of have that looser approach when you're inking it, you can make it come alive. You know what I mean? Like a good inker can take stiff pencils and make them energize them and bring them, infuse them with life. And
Yeah.
so that's what he meant, is that you can go in there and just make things, move and have it come alive. And so that's how I work now. And I know there's some people that, like even like Ethan Van Sciver, and I think even Todd McFarlane, I would watch them work, and they would kind of have a loose like structure. This is what I want, and then they would finish it in the ink. And that to me is an exception to the rule. Like those people aren't they're not normal.
Yeah.
I think of them as kind of like Mozart, like they already have the symphony in their head. You know what I mean? Like it's just a matter, this is just a technicality, putting it down on paper. It's already fully drawn in their head, because I don't know how else you could do that, right?
Totally.
Like, because you're drawing in ink.
Yeah, it's a very interesting experience. Like that's kind of what Corey and I do when it comes to digital now. And to me, it's much more of a, that initial creative process you go through during the penciling stage. Well, you end up going through that, working in that way with the inks. And so you're kind of building it up as you go, and you're watching it come together as you're laying down that next line with the ink. And so I think it can be a very interesting and very different experience as an inker to work in that way. If the pencils are already done for you and they're polished, and your job is then just to go over the top of that and maybe enhance it a little bit here and there. It's almost like you don't have to necessarily think about it as much. You're almost on autopilot at that point, and I guess that's the place you want to be in as well, so that you don't mess anything up. But
yeah, you don't want to think too much. You want to be in the moment when you're doing it. And I noticed too, when I'm inking myself, like I can do this over other people easier. I think it's because I'm not as connected to it, that I'll change a hatching direction, or I'll move things in a different way, because when I'm inking, like I said, you're in that moment, so it's more instinct. Like you're not overthinking it, you're kind of instinctual. So you might have a hatch direction that's not quite serving it, and so when I'm inking other people, I can change those and not get uptight about it. But what I'm trying to do with my own work is try to just go, if there's a different approach, just take it. Like don't get hung up like, because you know how much work it took to figure all that out. So then when I'm inking now, I'm just like, no, it's somebody else's work. Don't get precious about it. Don't get crazy about it. Just fucking do it. You know what I mean? Just be in that moment, and don't get in your head. And I'll tell you, I was gonna say 9 times out of 10, 10 out of 10, it's always the right thing. At least for me, like instinct is always spot on. And there's something weird about the way I work. If I have a brush in my hand versus a pen, like like a Hunt 102 or whatever, a crow quill, I'll always make the right decision. Like if I have a brush, I'll always boom, boom, boom. And it's oh my God, it's like magic. And I wish I could ink more with a brush, because like comics is not like as old school, and so everything's a little tighter and cleaner. So you kind of got to get in and be a little bit more technical. So I have to use the more technical tool. But I'll tell you, Clayton, Corey, like there is a style, and I do it sometimes with my commissions, where I'm eventually just gonna bust out the brush. Like Sean Gordon Murphy, that stuff. That's just balls to the wall. He's not agonizing. He's just throwing shit down. Like he's trusting himself. That it's there. I've seen his pencils, and it's all there, but it's still a little sketchy and it's not that clean. And then he just goes in and pop, 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 just does it, and it's all instinct. And God, I love that stuff.
Yeah, that is amazing. That's really amazing, and it's good to be that free as an artist as well. Sometimes it's a hard place to get to, especially if you don't have that experience and you don't have that mileage behind you to get the confidence up. It's just sometimes it can feel like a nightmare, just constantly, again, like I said, second guessing yourself. But it sounds like you're in a place, Art, of course, being a veteran yourself, where you've got this stuff down pat. And
No.
I don't know. I guess you're still
every day I feel like I'm reinventing the wheel. I swear to you guys, it never gets easier.
Well, that's what keeps you hooked in, right? Otherwise, it'd just be boring.
Yeah, I think so. I remember talking to Will Spartaccio, and he would, like, the beginning of the book, he would be passionate about, and then the end of the book, he would like slow down and stuff like that. And then I would be like, he'd be like, I asked him why. He said, I think I get bored. He said it's easy, and then I just procrastinate on it and I get bored. He said the beginning there's a challenge, there's like character design, there's the world, there's like, whatever the script has is written down there, I have to keep this visual. But then by the end of the book, that's already done, and he wants to, move on to the next challenge. He doesn't want to necessarily be bored and finish the story.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay. And so that's when we worked out, okay, I'll do finishes. So he started just blocking things out, and then I would finish it up, kind of like what you're doing, Clayton, with Corey's work.
Yeah, totally, for sure, man. No, that's really awesome stuff. And what you were talking about before with how you were focusing on the foundations of your art now, the anatomy, the proportions, that kind of thing, and not so much on the detail. That's one thing that Corey and I are always talking about, because Corey has this amazing ability to drop down shadows, as we saw. Like, I envy him for that, because I'm not that good. And then he renders just the crap out of it, basically. But I'm always on top of him about, hey man, you got to keep those foundations in mind. And he's on the top of me as well. Like, he's like, this looks off or that looks off, and I've rendered the heck out of it. And I'm like, no, because when you've got a foundational issue in your drawing, you have to completely like go back to the drawing board. You can't. You can't. Sometimes you can bring heavy shadows in. That's the only way I know how to really bullshit it, But other than that, man. Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Totally.
So how long have you guys been drawing? Like, and is this your first? Is Kozor your first book?
Yeah. Well, I actually worked on a comic called The Vault before Kozor, so that was like 300 pages, and that's basically where I learned how to do my style and how to do comics really and get used to it. And then I was inspired to do Kozor.
It was quite a while ago now. So you were just kind of starting out with the sequential stuff. But as you can imagine, after 300 pages of comic book sequential storytelling, he really got quite a knack for it.
Yeah.
So were you working on that same book, or what's your backstory?
No, I wasn't working on that one. Back when I was going to uni, I was working with an indie company called Dark Myth Studios, and we worked on a comic book called Sergeant Iron. And that was really the only project that I did for a long time, because at the time I was going to uni, so that was pretty stressful, and that book was really the last one that I wanted to do while I was going to uni. But it was a great experience. I really liked the character. Very old art. So, if you do manage to track that one down somewhere, you may not recognize it as my art. But, and then I started howtodrawcomics.net. And that's what I was really focused on for a majority of my 20s, I would say, is putting that together, creating tutorials, videos, courses, building it up. And I didn't really have a whole lot of time to actually sit down and focus on creating an actual comic book, which is funny when you think about it, that I was teaching people the art of comic book illustration, but I didn't have all that many under my belt. However, I was always trying to resist scratching that itch for the longest time, because the thing about teaching is that you learn so much along the way, breaking down your own process and a way that you can give it to other people and they can replicate. And so I was evolving and learning myself throughout my 20s until I got to this point now where I'm 30 And on that mark, we're coming out with Kozor. I've done a few concept sketches and the interior drafts for Renegade Alpha, which is my creator-owned title that we're going to focus on bringing out after Kozor. And so this is, I guess, in my 30s, I envision myself putting out a bunch of titles, and this is really where it begins with our first project from Barton Bros Studios being Kozor, which Corey will continue to work on. So I'll have Renegade Alpha, he'll have Kozor, and hopefully we'll be able to bring out a few titles to you,
So then the
guys each year.
Kozor 1 will be your title, and then Kozor 2 will come out after that.
Yeah, maybe. We haven't quite nailed down exactly what order we want to bring these books out in, because if we release Kozor and people, I mean, a lot of people jumped on board thus far, and if they really love it and they're wanting more Kozor, well, with the second issue of Kozor almost complete now, I think Corey's halfway through the coloring on that one. What do we do there? Do we release Kozor issue 2 a few months after Kozor issue 1? Do we announce Renegade Alpha? It's hard to know.
You guys have the opportunity to do something that most of the Comicsgate books. Let me take this from Carl first. Sometimes these get away from me. Thank you so much, Carl. I do appreciate it. I love the Addams Family image there. I like quite angular, heavy, tapered strokes. Would I be better off learning to ink with a quill or brush? A great discussion, by the way. Okay, so I like working both. I'll tell you, for me, the way I ink, I'm kind of, I can do both, but the more mechanical, like angular stuff is easier for me. My hand will move more in geometric ways. Rounded shapes are a little bit harder with crow quills, but they're easier with brushes. So with brushes, like you can be more like you can romanticize the line easier with a brush. So you can do curves and you can do like nice like fluid lines. Crow quills, it's more of like it's a tool. It's very rigid. It's like you can chisel things out. So if you're going to do more angular work, like I don't know, like Walter Simonson or something like that, very stylized, use the crow quill. Use like I would recommend like a 102, like a Hunt 102, because they're a little bit more rigid, and I think you could do that, the more angular stuff. And the key with angles is like keep those corners clean. Like you don't want overlap, so you want to keep those corners clean. So that's kind of the hardest part with that. So I hope that helped, Carl. So I'm sorry, where were we?
I forget now.
We were talking about the order of the books, but I think the Replicator commented it. So we're going to actually do Replicator 3, I think, next, and then Kozor 2.
Well, Rob will do Replicator 3.
Yeah. So this is all kind of under the same kind of aegis. You guys are all publishing kind of under the same house. Oh, okay.
No. So that's a little bit misleading. So we're going to focus on helping Rob promote Replicator 3. He's going to be running his own campaign, however.
Okay.
So, as far as Barton Bros Studios and me and Corey are concerned, we are kind of doing it together. So, I'm helping Corey to run his campaigns for Kozor, and Renegade Alpha will also be run underneath myself and any other projects that we do. But Rob has been just such a huge help to us. He's always on our streams, helping to promote the book and promoting it in the comment threads, just like this one. So we want to really give back to him and make sure that Replicator 3 does even more than we've done on Kozor.
Yeah, guys are fun to hang out with. I always wish I had more time. But Rob and Clayton and you, Corey, like you guys are just a lot of fun. You're very low key, which is not it's not my nature. So I always Calm down.
Well, I feel like we bounce off of each other really well because of that. Like when you get two low key people, it's kind of like just it's low key. There's no contrast. If you get two hyper people, they're talking over one another. But when you've got the best of both worlds, I think that that's when you get some of the best shows. I think that are out there.
Yeah, I have a little animation training, and one of the things when you're casting voice actors for your show is you want contrast. You always want contrast. So the character when your eyes are closed, right? You can tell, oh, that's SpongeBob and that's Squidward or whatever. So you always want to make sure that they're dynamically opposed. You don't want anything close together. And I have seen stuff like there was that Sinbad cartoon. And it was Brad Pitt and Michelle Pfeiffer, and I forget the other voice actors, but they hired a bunch of good-looking people, and the tone of the entire show is the same. It's all like the same speaking tonation and everything. And if you look at all the brilliance of stuff, like as far as voice casting is like Toy Story, which is the Woody character and the Buzz Lightyear character, that's just
for sure.
The dynamic between those two voices is absolutely genius.
Man.
I do agree. I think even when we're putting these shows together, there is certain cadence that works well with each other, and we got to do more shows.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to. Well, I very much enjoy the conversations we have about the craft. You've got some really interesting ideas and great insights, Art. And, it's stuff that we all think about on a daily basis because we're doing this stuff in the real world. We're constantly challenging ourselves in different ways and whatnot.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Sketch Therapy.
Yeah. Good to see you guys here. Yeah. It's like, wait a minute, they're on Art Stream? This is weird. They're from Australia. How'd they get here? I don't know. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So it's all good. And you guys are just this is for anybody listening. Yeah. Go check out Kozor. They have plans to keep putting those books out and support the books. And this is just the tip of the iceberg for the Barton brothers, because you're just seeing what they're starting off as. This is only going to get better and better. And it's always my favorite thing is watching new talent. And it's usually like in the old days, like if it was Marvel, DC, they start on their first issue, and then right about issue 3, you start seeing the magic happen, right? You start going, oh my gosh, there's something here. Yeah. And I think that's what we're witnessing, here as well. And that's why I get really excited about the Comicsgate books and new people coming in, because what we're going to get is, and hopefully with myself too, because the reason I don't write myself off is because I have worked kind of under guidelines for Marvel and DC, so I haven't really been able to express myself. And also, what happened over my career is that there's people that kind of take your ideas and then they run with them, and as an inker, you never get credit for them because they're the penciler, and they're always the ones that they can take this Hatch style, or they can take this whatever way you did it, and then they can run with it and they can incorporate that in their style. And so then you get kind of beat up after a while, and people that are following, and there's other inkers and they know what's going on, but you don't really get the claim, you don't get the acclaim and stuff like that. So one of the things with me, I still think of myself like you guys, you haven't even started to see what I'm capable of yet. You know what I mean? So I look at my career right now as with Comicsgate and going right to, the consumer and talking to people and letting them see what we're putting together. I feel like I'm starting my career over right now. This is just the beginning. And
yeah, absolutely. Well, your book, man, is one of the best books out there right now on Indiegogo. Yeah.
Oh wait, hold it up. There it is.
There it is. Absolutely beautiful artwork. And as you're saying, this is just the beginning for so many of us. And And we're really excited by that proposition, exactly where we're going to end up, a year from now, 5 years, 10 years, where we all will be, because, Black and White was a huge success. And I mean, if that's just the beginning, what are we going to be seeing from you in the years to come?
I got stuff
Kozor,
right now. I want to show. I want to show because Black and White Volume 2. I want to
Yeah.
show it. But the thing is, like, I originally wanted to launch the campaign, in the fall. But we're prepping the house that we live in here, like in California, and we want to move to Texas. So I'm realizing that what I thought was just going to be able to be a back burner, like getting the house ready, is more of like it's the front burner. Like it's taking a lot more time. So when I do get time in the evenings to draw and work on Black and White, it's precious to me, but also it's taking more time. But I do have stuff squirreled away. I have things that I want to show, but like people in the chat are like, well, just show it, build up, like people want to see it. But I want to build it and then be able to pay it off. So right now, my future as far as like when I'm going to launch my next campaign and things are up in the air because I don't know where I'm going to be living. I don't know if it's going to be here. I don't know if it's going to be in Texas. I don't know where it's going to be. So I need to kind of stabilize my personal life first. But at the same time, I'm getting to squirrel away a lot of work and being able to put, a lot of time in there and thought that I might not be able to do. I always call it like having a gun to your head. Like most of when you're doing monthly projects and you're doing monthly work, you have a timeline and you have that gun to your head and you got to get it done before a certain time or else bam, it's over. So so I gotta, I think I'm trying to look at it as like kind of a blessing. Like I got a little bit more time to put in and getting this this campaign together. And there's some ideas that if I would have launched it in September, I wouldn't have had because I just got them a couple of days ago. So there is something about like spending time and kind of thinking things through as well, which I you guys, with running, Kozar and stuff like that, and then trying to figure out your next campaigns.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
Corey's the same. I mean, he's got like 30 volumes, he reckons, of like Kozor planned out inside his brain. So it's really cool. And I can't even imagine like where Corey's going to be at years from now with Kozor. It's going to look absolutely spectacular. And I think we're going to leave a really good impression on people with this first issue. And everyone that's a part of it is a part of something that's extremely special to us. So thank you to everybody who's jumped on board and supported us, and thank you, Art, for having us on today, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, no problem. And it did roll into 6 hours, so you guys got 6 hours left, and you're closing in on 20K, which is really, really good. I'm fairly confident you'll be over 20K. And so is this the first month or the second month of the campaign?
This is the second month of the campaign. Yeah. So and just so that we're being completely transparent as well with everybody, we are intending to leave it in demand for a little while. So the campaign will end in a few hours, but then it'll transfer over into in demand. So those of you who you've got bills to pay, you don't quite have the money available just yet to back, but you want to back, then you'll have the opportunity to do that for a few months. And so that's pretty much where we're at with it.
Yeah, I have to ask you this, Corey. How long, if you had no interruptions, how long would it take you writing, penciling, and inking the next Kozar? Like, how long would it take you to put one of those books together?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty fast. Like before, when I worked on the Vault comic like full time, like I was doing a page a day practically for this guy, like full inks and colors. But I guess for Kozor, I did want to make it a lot more special and do my best on it. So I don't know, like possibly even 5 a year if I really wanted to. But I think 2 or 3 just to really like polish them up and make them really special would be good.
I
Because
was
it's not like normal releases, you know. It's like
Right.
Indiegogo special edition stuff.
I did have a thought though, because I was thinking that out of everybody I've talked to, you might be the fastest artist, and with a very very detailed style as well. So you might have the opportunity to, and especially since it's a serialized story, like there's one story and then it goes into the next story and then the next story.
Yeah, like
You're
all
not
the
telling-
characters sort of age and stuff as well, but it's just like different sort of things.
So
going
if
on,
you could put things out on like a bi-monthly or quarterly schedule, so like every 3 months you put out a book, so for a year, you might have the opportunity to do something that no one else has been able to do, which would also move you into a different category, because there's a lot of people that, and me included, that was thinking that I was going to be able to do these more like on like a Marvel or DC schedule. And just like Image Comics, which I should have learned, from them, that it does take quite a bit of, it takes more time when you're doing it yourself, because you're wearing many hats and you're doing a lot of different disciplines. Weren't like, I've done those disciplines, but I haven't done them all at the same time, on one book. So it is a lot different. So what I learned is that I'm going to do a lot of black and white stories, or a lot of chronomechanic stories, but I'm going to make them one and dones. So like Black and White Volume 2 is going to be continuation of Volume 1. So I'm going to follow up that story. But moving forward after that, I'm thinking 48 to 60 pages. I think 60 pages, you can tell a pretty epic story. So I would probably go 60 pages.
Issue 2 is 60 pages, so
yeah, do one and dones, and then just tell a complete 60-page story, because 60 pages is really the equivalence of like 3 normal sized comic books. So there's your beginning, middle, and end. If this is like a screenplay, you have your three pieces, so you can structure you can kind of methodically structure it with a 60-page story. And I'm real familiar with pacing a 20-page comic, so I'm looking forward to like actually trying to construct it, like use that mindset, and then have like a cliffhanger at the end of each 20 pages. So treat it as like, your beginning is setting up the world, and you're building everything, you're establishing your characters, and then you establish some kind of switch up. You start getting into plot more. Your middle is kind of like things are starting to fall apart, go crazy. And then like at the end of your second act, the shit has hit the fan completely. So by the start of the third act, your characters, your heroes are like at rock bottom, like how are they gonna, overcome this madness, and so then you get to have them overcome. So that's like a real simplistic way to kind of break it down, but you can think about it, in those regards. And I think for me, it's an ideal format moving forward. And also, I can put out a one and done, and then kind of not expect anybody to wait, 6 months, 8 months, a year for the follow-up. And this is just the reality and the learning curve, for everybody trying to figure out things moving forward. But that's why I mentioned it, Corey. I mean, obviously you guys will do what you're going to do, and it'll all be successful. But you might have the opportunity to do something that no one else can do. If you can put out a book every 3 months, holy shit, man.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I guess like at this stage, we're just really working it out to make sure like everything works. And, I think when I first started out, I tried doing things as detailed as I could. And so it's like over time, I could work out how to do that detail faster and faster just through practice. So hopefully that comes with actually doing things through Indiegogo, that it just gets more solid and streamlined.
And it's the world, so you should be more comfortable with the world and like the look of it and the style of it. So then it should maybe, I don't know, sometimes like for me it feels like I'm reinventing the wheel every day, but like, there are some people that I know when I'm working on a monthly book, I can fall into that pattern, and so then every consecutive issue I can get faster, and I understand the style, I understand the penciler's language, and I understand all these dynamics. So you have an opportunity that you can kind of get faster as you go along, as long as the variations are minimal. You know what I mean? As long as, like, you're going to be creating new things each storyline, but as long as they're minimal, you can kind of build and get faster. And to be honest, the only way I know how to get faster is repetition and approaching the work the same way every day. And if you're doing, if you're on a monthly schedule, or if Corey, you put yourself on like a quarterly schedule, then you have the opportunity to do something that none of us
it's great.
will probably be able to do. So yeah, I think for what it's worth, take that under advisement. Yeah.
No, I'd definitely like to keep to that. The more revenue, the better things get. So
yeah, it's better for everybody. It's better for you, because then you have an opportunity to improve and get faster, and it's better for your consumer, the readers, because they'll have regular product. And then, of course, if you can put out 1 book a year, that's great. But if you can put out 4 books a year, that's even better, because your revenue goes up. People used to get, like, my deadline went from 4 weeks to 3 weeks, and I go, well, now you get to make the same amount of money in 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, you get to work faster.
For sure.
So sometimes you got to kind of restructure it. Like, well, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because now if they took 2 weeks off my schedule, I have to do it in 2 weeks, which means I'll make the same amount of money that I made in a month in 2 weeks, or in 2 weeks. So it kind of can benefit you if you have the right mindset. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you guys have a parting shot? Do you have something you'd like to leave everybody with?
Corey, I'll let you go ahead.
Nah, man, I just say thanks for having us on. It's actually been awesome. Like, all the people inviting us on the streams. Like, I've met, like, I don't know, 10 or 20 new awesome creators over the last few days. So just by being on with Clayton, and like, I'll definitely follow your channel, Art, because you seem to give out good advice on inking as well. So
well, I think you guys. Thank you. You guys bring it out of me, because I sometimes I hesitate because I feel like I'm boring people.
No way. It's awesome, man. There's a lot of people out there that appreciate the pearls of wisdom from a veteran artist such as yourself. And I mean, as far as what I've got left to say, just same as Corey, thanks so much for having us on, Art. Thanks to everybody in the chat and everybody out there who has jumped on board with Kozor so far. We really do appreciate your support. It means that Corey can work on this story full time, which is his dream, to be able to wake up and work on Kozor each day.
Like, seeing how many people have jumped on, I'm like, man, I got to make this like really, really good. So
yeah,
I'm excited
for sure, dude. You got 350 people almost to impress. So yeah. And you guys aren't going to be disappointed in this book. Like, if you love what you've seen in the campaign, when you're holding it in your hands, it's going to be on a whole other level. If you haven't backed it yet, then look, if you like franchises such as The Witcher, such as Dark Souls, Game of Thrones, even if you enjoy titles such as Berserk, Conan, and of course Lovecraft, then Kozor is going to be right up your alley. It's got everything that you could ever want from the dark fantasy and medieval horror genres. So yeah, check out the book, back it today, and help us get this thing as high as we can before the campaign ends.
Well, the thing I'm looking forward to is these crazy mushroom people, Corey.
Well, I'd done like a mushroom girl like so long ago, and I want to eventually have her in the book. So, if you scroll through if you go through my Facebook page and you really search it out, you'll see like all my old characters I'm gonna add in. So
that's cool. Wait, you have a great fertile imagination. I want to see more monsters, man. Your monsters are going to be incredible, and your environments are pretty one of a kind. So you guys keep the faith, keep working. The book looks great. And you guys have 6 hours left, to back Kozor. And you guys are going to do the countdown on John Malin's later. So check out John Malin's channel. And go back. Do you have a channel, Corey, or is it Clayton's channel?
Yeah, mostly just been hanging around Clayton's channel. I'm not sure. I might actually start up some drawing streams or something over my channel when we get near issue 2 or something. When I get the time, you know.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, try to establish a following. I love watching people draw. I know some people think it's boring. I never think it's boring. The only thing for me is like I'm usually multitasking, so I don't get to pay 100% attention to what's being drawn because I'm always like this, you know. I have my lap board here. Like I just put it right here and I draw and I just watch things, you know, right here. So yeah, you should do that. So go back, go sub Clayton's channel. It's great. He gets Rob Arnold on a lot, and he's got Replicator, and that book looks great as well. And you guys, Chrono Mechanics is in demand, so please go check that out. Not only is the Chrono link in the description, but I have a Kozor link as well. So click that link, go over there. Back the book. These brothers, this is passion work, you guys. Get in there and back a book, and you're gonna get some cool, you know, like sword sorcery fantasy work. Which I don't know, man. It seems like there's a little bit of a comeback for that, like, you know, because I grew up in the like Arnold Conan day, you know, where you know I read the Marvel like John Buscema, you know, Savage Sword stuff. And then to see this movie, I was like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. There's a lot of crappy stuff that came out after that, but there was some gems. There was some good stuff. But there seems like there is a little bit of a not sci-fi, like sword and sorcery revival. Game of Thrones, I think, has really thrown you know, the attention that way. So there's a lot of stuff coming up and good stuff as well, like Kozor. So very good, you guys. Have a wonderful evening. Thanks for coming in, you guys. And check out John Malin's channel later on.